Challenger!
Welcome viewer. First of all, I hope you will enjoy this video maybe even as much I had making it. Once again, we will be looking at a video by the channel Is Bible from Heaven? Is the Earth a Globe? And this one is all about mythology. They're in my house now. So no real debunking in this, maybe some logical connections and a lot of fun stories. The original video also has sitar music playing, and I'm a sucker for that. So let's jump into it.
Flat Earth Proof 10. The Legends. It goes without having to say that every culture has described the Earth as being flat and motionless. Ancient sailors and astronomers throughout the ages hadn't noticed any hints alluding to a globe. But despite their efforts, the knowledge they had collected systemically over the ages was eventually neglected and then largely forgotten.
So we start with beliefs on ancient civilizations. The Sumerian civilization is technically the oldest civilization known to mankind. The term Sumer is today used to designate southern Mesopotamia. In 3000 BC, a flourishing urban civilization existed that was predominantly agriculture and had community life. But a mnemonic study in 2016 had revealed that Aboriginal Australians are the oldest known civilization on Earth, with ancestry stretching back roughly 75,000 years. Now compare the timeline to Farneo-Magellan voyage in the first circumnavigation of the globe from 1519 to 1522. Going back further, it was believed that Vikings were the first Europeans to land on America, about 500 years before the birth of Christopher Columbus. Even farther back, the earliest record we have of ship under sail was from an Egyptian vase from about 3500 BC. From 50,000 BC, people from Asia sailed simple rafts from island to island, reaching near Oceania, that is Australia, New Guinea and the Solomon Islands. People from 1200 BC had sailed canoes farther east into remote Oceania like Melanesia, Micronesia and Polynesia. Thankfully, major advances in technology around 15th century onward allowed further colonization. When Flemish geographer and cartographer Gradus Mercator presented his cylindrical map projection in 1569, Antarctica wasn't even discovered, and yet it became the standard map projection for navigation because it is unique in representing north as up and south as down everywhere, while preserving local directions and shapes. The map is therefore conformal, but not totally accurate, and inflates the size of objects away from the equator. Finally, I'm pretty sure good navigators, and I know a couple, can still navigate the ocean without using latest gadgets that also happens to rely on those flying objects we globers called satellites. And they do this using the ancient method of following the stars. We have written records of this from Homer's Odyssey, when Calypso tells Odysseus to keep the bear or Ursa Major on his left-hand side and at the same time observe Pleiades or the seventh sister and Orion when he sailed eastward from her island of Ogygia. Earlier Polynesians also used the stars. Now maybe some of the technology is lost, like how the Polynesians made their raft thousands of years ago. Then watching Disney, maybe they have a bunch of ships lying over somewhere.
Though we will cover the how, let's first have a look through some of these ancient descriptions and see how they tend to describe the world we live on. The ancient Egyptians perceived the earth to be a flat plain, personified in the Necher Geb. Arching over the earth was Nut, the personification of the sky, who every morning gave birth to Ra, the sun. Beyond this was the realm called Duat, the place where deceased souls would go and await rebirth, while beyond the universe was the infinite expanse of the waters of Nu.
Yep. Historians suggest that the ancient Egyptians, from 31,000 BC to 332 BCE, believed that planet was square-shaped with 4 corners and an underworld below. The Babylonians also had similar views about a flat, enclosed earth. Well, Egypt is an amazing place. If you want to see how ideas evolve over time, that is a good place to start thanks to their documentations. In the early stages of human thought, the concept of God did not exist. Egyptians believed in magical power that was encapsulated in the hieroglyph of a scepter. This is one of the most enduring symbols of divine power, even present in the images of pharaohs and the gods. As human society evolved, people gradually gained a degree of personal identity. With a higher sense of individuality, humans began to conceive the gods in a personalized form. This stage in development is called mythical. At this stage, every Egyptian town had its own particular deity, manifested in a material fetish or a god represented in the shape of an animal, such as a cat goddess, cobra goddess, ibis god, or jackal god. As the pantheon grew in cohesiveness, these goddess and goddesses were given human bodies and credited with human attributes and activities. Then, it evolved over the centuries from one that emphasized local deities to a national religion with a smaller number of principal deities. When the Greeks and the Romans conquered Egypt, their religion was influenced by that of Egypt. Ancient pagan beliefs gradually faded and were replaced by monotheistic religions. So did their understanding of shape of earth. I'm sure majority of Egyptians do not believe in a square plane. Perish that thought. My only argument is, if we just look at this civilization, we see how the belief changed. Now, if we pluck one of those old beliefs, why that and not the rest? Obviously, we know the answer, cause that's the one that fits the earth not being a globe. Ignore those 4 pillars, right?
The Vedic spiritualists described a spherical universe, one out of an infinite number, with the earth plane in the center dividing the heavenly half from subterranean worlds. The earth plane itself is a series of concentric rings of alternating ocean and land, with the central island the abode of humanity. At the very center of this universe is the cosmic axial mountain, Mount Sumeru, atop of which are cities of the gods. Compare this to Mount Olympus in the Greek legends. Further in Vedic cosmology, the sun, moon, and planets all have their orbits in layers above the flat plane revolving around the central pole star, above which is the abode of the Creator.
This is truly priceless. Did you guys notice how they start with Vedic believed in a spherical universe? Now, before getting into some Sanskrit, my most treasured possession before my Atari 2600 was a set of 6 encyclopedias for kids. This is early 80s and wasn't color and very little drawing. These are the days before computer, and we had small pieces of engraved letter that had to be manually placed for the printing press. Anyway, as that set was printed in India, it had a huge chapter on old cosmological beliefs. This one predated the current Hindu religion. There were the Naga people who believed in a spherical earth that rested on the head of a giant snake, and whenever the snake shook its head, earthquake happened. Then there was spherical earth that was balanced between the horns of a giant bull. Once again, when the bull shifted it from one horn to another, earthquake happened. Current Hindu cosmology talks about time being infinite with a cyclic universe, where the current universe was preceded and will be followed by infinite number of universes. In fact, I believe they came up with multiverse long before science did. One of my subjects I hated most in school was geography. In fact, our teacher was convinced that I would fail the class. The word in Bengali comes from Sanskrit and it is bhugol, where bhu means land and gol means round. Just saying. It was a long time ago when gods and asuras were constantly at war with each other and the population on both sides were dwindling. There was not a steady supply of babies to replace the fallen warriors. Something had to be done. Instead of just not fighting, Vishnu decided to give the gods immortality so they can keep on fighting forever, I guess. But how? Well, the earth contains many minerals and once extracted properly, the Charana Mitru can make the gods immortal. The problem is, Vishnu didn't have enough manpower. Well, I mean enough gods to do it. So he had to go to the Asuras for their alliance to complete the task. In return, they would get a fair share of the immortality liquid, and they all agreed. Now, who can see a mile off what would happen? A god, by definition, can only do good thing. An Asura or demon, by definition, can only do bad thing. Understand what that truly means. Any act by a god is good. Moving on. In order to extract the minerals, they decided to churn the ocean. They needed a big stick and a rope. There was a huge snake called Vashuki, and he agreed to be used as a churning rope. For the stick, they found a mountain which matched their requirement perfectly. This mountain was broad at the top and narrow at the bottom. It was Mountain Meru, which is often believed to be in heaven, the abode of gods, upon which the gods have built their capital city, Amaravati. Oh, for those who want to know where Mountain Meru is, it is the biggest floating iceberg in the North Pole. Duh! So the gods and the Asuras took it upon themselves this task and tried to lift this Meru. But yet they could not accomplish the task. God Vishnu interfered again and said, "Never set out to do something which is beyond your caliber. You could have simply asked me to do so." Saying so, he lifted the Meru with both hands and pressed it against his body, waded through ocean waters to a convenient location, and dropped it into the ocean. Seriously, man, if you can bloody do it yourself, why did you freaking ally with the Asuras? Bloody morons. And churn they did, and lots of things came out of this endeavor. And last came the immortality bestowing liquid, Charanamitru. Oh, by the way, of course Vishnu negated on his deal about sharing the potion, but that is okay, right? It is act of the god. Well, when the gods were drinking the potion, one Asura named Rahu disguised himself and sat down with the gods. I guess they were taking turns, and soon it was Rahu's turn. As he starts drinking, the god Surya and the goddess Chandra sees through Rahu's deception and lobs his head off. But as the potion already had reached up to his throat, that part became immortal. This is so cool. God Surya is the sun god. Goddess Chandra is the moon goddess. So up to this day, Rahu is chasing Surya and Chandra across the sky for vengeance. When he catches up to them, he swallows them. But as he doesn't have his body, they pass through. Well, that's why we have eclipse. No prize in guessing what the Sanskrit word for eclipse is. It is Rahu. Seriously, I can go on for hours on Gita and Ramayana. You can see a couple of verses on screen. The passage from Atiriya Brahma of Rigveda 344 or Srimad Bhagavatam 5.21.9 both describes the sunrise and sunset. I will not torture you with my Sanskrit pronunciation. I think I did that on one video. English translation for the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam simply is: people living in countries at points diametrically opposite to where the sun is first seen rising will see the sun setting. And if a straight line were drawn from a point where the sun is at midday, the people in countries at the opposite end of the line would be experiencing midnight. Well, I know of only one shape where that is true. Wait, no. A cylinder also holds the same. But Yaga Vashishta Maharamayana makes it a bit more clear with the conversation between Ram and Vashishta. Ram said, "Tell me, sage, why do we refer to up and down, forward and backward, if there is no such thing in space and nature?" Vashishta replied, "There is only one space involving all things. The worlds seen in the infinite and indiscernible womb of emptiness are like worms moving on the surface of water. All these bodies that move about in the world by their lack of freedom are thought to be up and down relative to our position on earth. So, when there are ants on an earthen ball, all its sides are reckoned below that are under their feet, and those as above which are over their backs. Such is this ball of earth in one of these worlds, covered by vegetables and animals moving on it, and by gods, demons, and men walking upon it." Now I read that as a spherical earth. Oh, and I read it as a story. I love Terry Pratchett and Discworld, but I don't believe on Great Attune. Maybe I know the difference between fiction and non-fiction.
Another ancient worldview is that of the ancient Scandinavians, who, according to the sagas, saw humans as inhabiting Midgard, the most central of many worlds. Surrounding Midgard is a great ocean which itself is encircled by the cosmic serpent Jormungandr. In the center of Midgard stands Yggdrasil, the cosmic tree whose branches connect the world of Midgard to other worlds of fire, ice, giants, and elves, with its roots reaching into the netherworlds, and its upper branches reaching high into the heavenly worlds, and Asgard, where Valhalla is, while Sol the sun and Mani the moon forever chase each other over and around Midgard.
Yes, we are all now Norse mythology expert after watching Thor and all the sequels. I love those Valkyrians, but I'm not sure what they would do with someone like me. I mean, I rather reason than fight. Now, do I really need to add anything to this Norse story?
One detailed description of the chase between sun and moon is exemplified in the fable of the tortoise and the hare, in which the hare, who represents the sun, starts the race out arrogant and speedily, overtaking the tortoise as the sun does the moon during the northern summer months, then slowing down in the winter when the steady-paced moon once again overtakes the sun in orbit.
Interesting. Well, I came across this tortoise and the hare story again in my encyclopedia under Aesop's work. This slave and storyteller believed to have lived in the ancient Greece around 620 BC. A lot of the stories were collected from folklores. Like a lot of his other work, this story is quite ambiguous. In classic time, the emphasis was on the rabbit. Many people have good natural abilities, which are ruined by idleness. When it entered European emblem tradition, the focus became hasten slowly, or the more haste, the worse speed. In the 19th century, it was given a satirical interpretation, where the hare is a thoughtful craftsman prostrate under the foot of a capitalist entrepreneur, and understanding the stupidity of the challenge, he refuses to proceed any further. A century later, Vikram Seth broadened the satire in beastly tales and had it both ways. There is nothing to recommend in the behavior of either protagonist by way of a moral. While the tortoise victory bolsters his joyless self-righteousness, The harebrained loser is taken up by the media and pampered, while the tortoise was forgotten. Not to mention this story gives rise to Zeno's paradox. But this is the first time I'm hearing this story to be compared with sun and moon. One question: what makes the summer before winter? Traditionally, when we use these two words together, we do use them in that order, summer and winter. But we could equally have the order as winter and then summer. In UK, our year starts with winter. Then isn't it more accurate for me to say winter comes before summer? Using that, I can then say in your story, you have it in reverse. The sun started slow and then sped up to beat the moon.
The paths of the sun and moon above the flat disk Earth, as well as lunar phases, were encoded in the Chinese Yin-Yang symbol.
You might want to go and tell billions of Chinese that they have it wrong all this time. In all seriousness, in ancient Chinese philosophy, Yin and Yang is a concept of dualism, describing how seemingly opposite or contrary forces may actually be complementary, interconnected, and interdependent in the natural world, and how they may give rise to each other as they interrelate to one another. In Chinese cosmology, the universe creates itself out of a primary chaos of material energy, organized into the cycles of yin and yang, and formed into objects and lives. Yin is the receptive, and yang the active principle, seen in all forms of change and difference, such as the annual cycle, winter and summer, the landscape, north-facing shade or south-facing brightness, sexual coupling, female and male, and such. In Taoist metaphysics, distinctions between good and bad, along with other moral judgments, are perpetual, not real. So the duality of yin and yang is an indivisible whole. Where in Confucianism, a moral dimension is attached to the idea of yin and yang. Now, if one wants to extend that to sun and moon, that I can agree with. But saying sun, moon, and lunar cycles was encoded into the symbol is simply incorrect. On a final note, this is a symbol of yin and yang, and this is the Tai Chi symbol. Note that yin and yang doesn't have those dot lines. I believe Tai Chi symbol stands for the force which breaks apart Wuji and brings all things together again into balance or reintegration. I'm not a Chinese scholar.
The ancient Mesopotamians also believed in a flat disk Earth, which the surviving Babylonian account describes as having been formed from half the slain body of Tiamat, the primordial chaos, with the other half of her body being stretched out to form the skies and the netherworld, where all souls went to await after death. Situated above the pole star was the throne of the gods, and whilst the entire earth was surrounded by a salt ocean, a ridge of high mountains encircling the edge kept the waters from overflowing.
Well, I don't really have anything new to add here, but I will touch on that clay table they showed. The Babylonian Map of the world is a Babylonian clay tablet containing a labeled description of the known world, with a short and partially lost description dated to roughly the 6th century BC. Note, I did say known world to them. The tablet was discovered at Baghdad Vilayat, some 60 km north of the Babylon, on the east bank of the Euphrates River. The text was first translated in 1889 and is in display at the British Museum. The map is centered on the Euphrates, with the city of Babylon is shown on the northern half of the map. Interestingly, Haban, the capital of Kassiat, is shown incorrectly to the northwest. And this proves Earth is a globe? Honestly, I'm not a violent man, but people believing in this at these days and time should not contribute to human gene pool. The following section was talking about 3 Abrahamic religions and their text. Well, in case you didn't know, now you know. Who got the wrestling reference there? I'm an agnostic. There is a video on my channel on moving away from God to science and logic. I mostly focus on Abrahamic God there. TLDR, religion is man-made, which means the book is man-made. Now answer me this. When a flat earther is ill, do they use modern medicine that have rejected ancient knowledges like bloodletting? I'm sure they take medicine rather than putting leeches on their body.
That nearly all of these beliefs, with the exceptions of those absorbed and bastardized by the Church of Rome, have been hunted down and suppressed worldwide, with the surviving of these descriptions written off by their own institutions as either figurative or ancient ignorance.
Well, didn't the church prosecute Galileo? I forgot. Can someone please remind me in the comment why the church did so? What was Galileo's crime? And duh, when you say there was a worldwide flood, or human existed only for 6,000 years, a magical number you got by adding up all the ages of people mentioned in Bible and Adam and Eve descending from heaven, then science kind of rubs it on your face. You really have 2 options. Option 1, decide to die on the hill and declare everything is fake, from dinosaurs fossils to DNA research. Or option 2, those are all figurative. I think they chose the correct option available to them.
While the colonialists and missionaries of the European empires were of course all formally dispatched by their respective monarchs, they were all under the thumb of the brotherhoods operating from beneath the Vatican. In reality, there is only this one empire in the world today.
Can someone just show this moron a graph or something showing world population broken into religious belief? I will look for such graph, but I can bet Christianity would be less than 50%. Hey, don't judge me. I'm playing safe.
Once the British established their standards in India, holy men, Ayurvedic doctors, and even just ordinary people who refused to wage work were rounded up and put in the very first insane asylums.
Bullshit and partially true. I know the history of British colony in India quite well. Hell, that was part of the school course. From all the atrocities to the good things, one vivid memory I have is watching a drama as a little boy. The British Empire just quelled a rebellion and tied all the rebels up on the trees in the forest. The camera zooms out as you can hear them calling out for water and slowly dying. Well, what remains of this forest is a 10 feet by 10 feet area with a small plaque in Bangladesh. Let's approach it from the other end. It's all about making money. You're in a foreign land. Yes, you do have technical superiority, and that does count for a lot. There was a Bengal rebel named Titumir. He rose against the empire and constructed a castle to protect his people. That's a pretty good idea, right? Unfortunately, this castle was made out of bamboo, and the British Empire rolled with cannons, and everyone was killed. But even that is no match when the odds are 1 to 100. Mostly you try to bribe local lords and build an army from local people. At times, they force farmers to plant this thing called anil, which caused a huge issue for the farmers as they couldn't plant rice, the main source of their living. So yes, those who could benefit the empire was forced to work and killed if they refused. Those who couldn't were mostly left alone, which I agree is the right decision, though very cynical. I'll do exactly the same in a game of civilization.
The Chinese were so well versed in the knowledge of the earth and spirituality that it took the Jesuit spies years of scheming in order to devise plans that would ultimately displace traditional Chinese philosophy with Western science and ultimately communism, not to mention having pushed opium on the people for decades.
I do need a BS meter. During this pandemic, CCP had been pushing their traditional medicine, which by the way does not work. And this whole story is completely false. I will not go into the history of Chinese Empire. That would be an hour-long video. Traditional Chinese philosophy are still practiced in China, as long as CCP allows it. So no Falun Gong. As for British opium history, it is fascinating to say the least. And we need our tea, god damn it. Well, it was a trade war, and nothing to do with religion, belief, shape of earth, and such.
Now, the first person credited as describing the ball Earth in orbit around the Sun was Pythagoras of Samos, to whose school Freemasonry traces their origins, and whose idea wasn't even able to convince the populace until it curiously resurfaced 2,000 years later, shortly after the supposed discovery of the New World, when the Vatican vehemently began to displace original cultures worldwide.
Early Greek philosophers alluded to a spherical earth, though with some ambiguity. Pythagoras in 6th century BC was among those said to have originated the idea. But this might reflect the ancient Greek practice of ascribing every discovery to one or another of their ancient wise men. Some idea of the sphericity of the earth seems to have been known to both Parmenides and Empedocles in the 5th century BC, and although the idea cannot reliably be ascribed to Pythagoras, it might nevertheless has been formulated in the Pythagorean school in the 5th century BC, although some disagree. Wait, this video says Pythagoras couldn't convince anyone and it resurfaced 2000 years later? Eratosthenes from 240 BC might disagree when he calculated Earth's circumference. Or are we talking about church silencing science?
So investigate the subject for yourself and ask questions.
I agree. I'll finish the video with one example. Suppose I go outside and dig my garden to find an ancient tablet, say from 5,000 years ago. There is no doubt on the originality of this tablet, meaning it is as old and it talks about human anatomy. It even gives a number of total bones in an adult human body. Here my examples has two choices, like an adventure game. Suppose this value matches real value. Well, we'd be super surprised on how they managed it such a long time ago and would love to know what other things it might have mentioned. Then again, if it was wrong, we would still be enthusiastic, but for a totally different reason. Let's take it one step further. Suppose I find 100 stone tablets. 99 of them are absolutely accurate, but the last one got the total number of bones wrong. Now, a sane person would say that being correct 99 other times doesn't make this one correct. We might give it a more thorough look, but that is really all the credence it would get. So even if Albert Einstein was alive today and gave us a new formula, it would still have to go through peer reviews. It would get a lot more publicity, but that's it. Last couple of 100 years, we have progressed in an amazing rate. One of the unsung hero in my opinion is Henry Maudslay, who is considered a founding father of machine tool technology. His inventions were an important foundation for the Industrial Revolution and mass production. And we will know more. That's how science works. Please, move on with the time. This is where I'll end this long video. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this content so far, please drop a like and comment, and maybe even subscribe to know of my latest uploads debunking the rest. That would be greatly appreciated and would help my small channel grow. Have a safe day. Signing off.
try.